Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Essays and Espresso podcast. I am your host, Daniel, and with me are my two cohorts, Boken and Acer. Boken, how are you?
Hello, I'm fine. It's hot.
And
It's very hot.
oh, is it? Well, I live in Miami.
Oh yeah,
It's always hot.
No mercy.
I actually
it's
like
actu-
summer, except when I have to go outside and work.
Excuse me, you just like staying inside when it's warm?
Yeah, I like being if my apartment is really hot. I enjoy that.
That is very you.
Is it? Could you elaborate on that?
No.
I see.
Normal people would say, hey, I like summer.
Oh, okay.
I like summer. I like being outside in the sun. You say, oh yeah, I like summer. I like being inside when it's warm outside.
Well, yeah, because it's inside. It's warm too.
Yeah,
I don't
guess.
enjoy being cold. I don't enjoy wearing a lot of clothes.
I used to love winter when I was young, but now, whenever it's cold, my joints feel really bad. So,
Oh, you old man talking about your joints.
that is true. Last time I went to Spain, that was the first time for like many, many years where my knees all of a sudden felt really good. It was like, it's just because I live in a frozen hellhole.
Are you sure it's not just because you're a boomer?
Oh,
Oh,
the millennial
no.
boomer.
I get liking winter when it snows, and I mean obviously that's very pretty, but here in Germany it hasn't snowed for the last 20 years or something. I mean I can
Really?
I remember a time when I was 6 or something. Like I'm living currently not far from where I grew up, and we used to have a lot of snow, and we went like what the fuck is the term? Not skiing, but when sleighing? Do you go
Sledding.
sleigh? Sledding, yes. We used to go sledding as little kids because there was snow, and there hasn't been snow in forever. Like climate change is fucking real, I think, because now it's only cold in winter, and there's none of the beauty and the snow and the nice Christmassy feeling.
But the thing about snow is, it's really nice for like 2 weeks, but then it's just this cold sludge which infests the roads and makes it impossible to get anywhere.
Sure, that's part of it too, yeah.
That's the majority part of it. That's what your American Hollywood movies, Daniel, don't show.
Well, I mean, I live in Miami, and I've never seen it snowing before.
Oh.
The closest I've ever seen to like actual snow is when I went on vacation up to New York, and that was about it. But like it was just like dried snow
Ew.
on the ground. It wasn't like snowing or anything like that. It wasn't anything cool.
You've never opened up a fridge or a freezer?
Yeah.
That's close. That's close enough.
Okay.
When you imagine snow, do you just see like Reese Witherspoon and like her parka or whatever on a movie poster? Because
I mean, I think like Home Alone comes to mind more.
oh, that's true. That is true.
Yeah. But yeah, recently it's been scorching hot in Miami. Like, holy shit. It's been really hot. Like,
And it's also really humid, right?
yeah.
That would probably kill me.
I don't mind it for the most part.
You're used
Like,
to it.
I'm used to it. I actually don't like the cold very much. I'd rather be warm. But most of the people around me prefer it to be cold because they're used to it being hot. So they want something different. But for me, I'm like, no, fuck that. I hate being cold.
Huh. This has been a really good 4 minutes of temperature talk.
It really has. So,
You
with that,
haven't
Acer, what
introduced
have
me.
you been up
You haven't introduced me, Daniel.
I just said Acer.
Yeah.
So
you
they
did
know who you
introduce us
are.
both.
We've been talking for 4 minutes.
Well, you guys decided to go on your butt fucking cold, this, heat, that discussion.
Well,
so whatever.
I was given the word, and then Asa just jumped in, even though I wasn't done yet. I mean, that's clearly his fault.
Well, it's Daniel's fault. He's the host. He should be managing this, I feel. Remember what a tight shift Boken kept when he was hosting?
Yeah.
No.
We would be by our third topic right now if I was hosting.
No, I don't.
And
I don't
we
like
would
this
be the
topic.
worse for it. It would be a shittier show for it.
Well,
The audience needs this discord, this chaos.
that is true. That is something you don't get in the highly edited videos. Anyway,
No. Acer, what have you been up to?
I've been doing a lot. I watched that Harley Quinn animated show. Some of it. I watched like a season and a half of it. So I had seen the first episode, the beginning of it, like some time ago, and I looked at it and I went, "Wow, this looks really boring. Like it looks like this is made by the same sort of let's be loud and swear a lot crowd that makes Family Guy." But I went back to it and I was like, "Oh no, you know what? It is it is that, but it is also pretty funny. Bane is pretty funny in it."
Did this just come out, or like I wasn't even aware there's a Harley Quinn show?
It's animated.
Yeah, sure, but is it recent?
Yeah, I think it's pretty new. Yeah,
It has 2 seasons. I think the third is coming up.
Wow, it's doing pretty good for itself then.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is pretty good.
So, I've only seen like clips here and there, and the visuals are extremely Bruce Timm inspired. Like it looks like it definitely feels like it's in the same universe as the animated series from the 90s.
Sure. Sure. I think that a lot of the animators and creatives from that series are working on this. I don't know if Bruce
That would
Timm
make
is.
sense.
Anyway, Harley Quinn.
Bruce Timm pretty much created that style.
Yeah. Bruce Timm, get that man an award of some kind. If he doesn't have 1,000 of them.
The only other name that I'm like familiar with would be Paul Dini, and he wrote a bunch of episodes.
He also, I think Paul Dini wrote Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, the games.
Yes, he did.
Didn't get him back for Arkham Knight, and the game suffered for it.
Yeah, he also wrote Heart of Ice from the original series, and that's like one of the fucking best episodes.
Did you know that in New 52, when they relaunched the DC lineup 10 years ago or something, they rewrote Mr. Freeze's origin so that Nora wasn't actually his wife. He was just crazy and thought she was his wife. Like, what editor thought, oh yeah, this tragic character which everybody loves, let's just take that element away from him.
Let's just rip the whole emotional core of this fucking character. Like, what?
Yeah, I think it's back to normal in current continuity though. So don't worry,
Good.
Daniel. You can still pick up your Mr. Freeze comics.
Put on your Mr. Freeze slippers.
I believe another very important contribution that he made was I think he created Harley Quinn's character, if I'm not mistaken. Pretty sure that was...
I think... Didn't you mean Bruce Timm or Paul Dini?
Dini.
Right. I think they're both credited as creators. But...
Okay.
Arlene is it Arlene? It's not
Arlene.
It's,
Arlene Sorkin. She's the voice actress.
Yeah, she should also have she should also have a role as creator because she did a lot to set that character right. Like if you watch.
Yeah, she was a fairly up there in age, and yet she was able to bring in this like bubbly, lighthearted, almost like perfect performance. Like.
I don't think they've ever recast Harley Quinn right. They go to Tara Strong a lot, and she's really good, but I feel like she's a bit too sort of bimbo-y for the role. I never buy her when she's just supposed to be mellow. In that Batman vs. Swamp Thing movie, or whatever they made it, it was that little blonde girl from The Big Bang Theory, Bogan's favorite show. What's her name?
She does a...
Yeah, Melissa Reich?
No idea.
No idea.
I don't know. I do think Tara Strong though does a really great job as Raven though in
Also,
Teen Titans.
Oh yeah, she's good there.
Bernadette sucks. That's when the show got bad.
Well, she plays Harley Quinn in one of the movies, and Kylie Cuoco plays Harley Quinn in the animated series. Hey, I brought it around. And she's good, but I think one of the big problems with the show is that it wants to be super sort of... So I hate it whenever shows that are cynical, you're like in the style of Family Guy, where it's like, we just do a lot of gore and violence and we say dirty words. But then they try to play up the emotion. It never works for me. I have never felt any emotion from the South Parks and Family Guys of the world. And this show does that too, where it wants to have its cake and eat it too. It wants to sort of make fun of these characters and all of these tropes, but also wants you to buy into it as like this earnest thing that's happening in front of you. When you spent 20 minutes mocking it, and now you want me to take it seriously.
Yeah, I think it's very hard to strike that balance.
They all want to be Scrubs?
I wouldn't know. I don't watch live action sitcoms. No, that's not true. I haven't seen Scrubs. Is it good?
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't aged super well, but Scrubs is particularly known for the emotional endings that pretty much come at every episode, and it's like genuinely funny. But somehow they always make that turn at the end where it gets really serious for a moment and makes you feel.
Yeah, I think Scrubs is, from what I remember, a pretty good show. Lopsided in quality, but generally speaking, a funny show with good characters.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the Harley Quinn show. It is so. The point of the show is basically, it is like a modern take on the '60s Batman. Did you guys ever watch Adam West's Batman?
Yeah, a little bit.
Those are good shows, and they are good representation of Batman and the Batman mythos. It's just silly, right? But it is totally Batman. It is very true to the characters. It's just silly. This is also a very good representation of the Batman mythos. It's just super cynical and, jokey. So Kite Man is in the show, and they mock him mercilessly for being Kite Man, but it's still, he's still a function of this universe. Like I said earlier, Bane, he's super funny in the show, and it's really weird with him. They've sort of gone with every possible iteration of Bane combined. He looks like the Joel Schumacher version, kind of, but he speaks like the Tom Hardy version. He's my favorite part of the show. He makes it for me. Batman in the show, it's Batman. It's a super sort of jokey, cynical version of Batman, but it is Batman. So, that stuff is all good. I'll say though, Kylie Cuoco as Harley Quinn, just bringing it back there, I think she makes a really good sort of Harleen Quinzel. I don't think she quite gets Harlequin though. Did you guys ever read the White Knight Batman saga?
Dude, do you even have to ask?
Yeah,
Well, what happened...
Literally, the only comic books he and I have ever read are the ones that you've recommended.
Well, I only recommend Gold.
I've read The Walking Dead, and I feel like I've read half an issue of a Gambit comic, and that was it.
Ew. I guarantee it was a bad one.
The only other comics that I've read are like scattershot like Spider-Man and Sonic the Hedgehog comics when I was like 8.
You guys didn't read the Donald Duck comics?
No.
Bogan, you're European. Yeah, you're European. You would have read them.
Do these count? Yeah, I did read those.
Anyway, the White Knight story, it's not great, but it has a lot of good ideas. So basically what happens in it is Joker is reformed, and he decides to become a better hero than Batman. And one of the first things that happens after he's been reformed is that he goes back to his hideout, and Harley Quinn is there, but he doesn't recognize her, and he's like, who are you? And she goes, it's me, it's Harley Quinn. And he's like, no, you're somebody else. And then it's revealed that, oh, Harley Quinzel was only with the Joker for like 6 weeks. And when she was taken away from him, she got therapy for her Stockholm Syndrome. And she went back to her real life. And then this other girl came in much later. And there was this interval where he didn't notice Harley Quinn wasn't there because he was crazy. And he just didn't realize that it wasn't her anymore. And I really like that idea, and I think that should be brought into Batman continuity. Because I don't like the sort of modern version of the Harley Quinn character. Because she's just this... So, you know, she's always has, like, her ponytails are colored in different places, and I don't know a cleaner way to say this, but she looks like a sort of prostitute, heroin junkie, kind of just really filthy, and I don't like that interpretation of the character, because I also don't think she's all that sympathetic, whereas she used to be, and I think they should just mix it so that Harley Quinn is Harley Quinzel, and then there's this other girl who's like this psychopath. Then you can have your cake, you can eat it too, and you can maintain the character. Anyway.
Okay. So, well, do you recommend the show?
Yeah, it is not a masterpiece, but there were some genuine laugh out loud moments for me whenever Bane was on screen, specifically. But
so you recommend a casual watch of it then?
Yeah, if you can sit, you know what you're getting into. You're gonna sit there and you're gonna watch the Joker drop like 20 F-bombs. But in between that, you're going to see Mr. I can't remember his name, Mr. Hypnotism or whatever he's called. He gets like pretty much cancelled because he offhandedly says that women aren't funny or something like that. And it's just that reality played out in the silliest way possible, where he's like this massive incel, but he's just trying to reform his image as a credible supervillain. It is pretty good.
Okay, that does sound pretty funny.
So I recommend watching it like watching Kaguya-sama Love is War, where you just need to watch clips of it on YouTube. Is that
Hey,
is that fair, Daniel?
No.
No, I recommend watching it. And
leave Kaguya out of this.
You talked about it in the last episode, didn't you? When I wasn't here, which is like 3 episodes ago when we record this.
I did bring it up, and that show is great. Don't make fun of it.
Okay. Anyway, that's Harley Quinn. Recommend it, but know what you're getting yourself into.
A cautious recommendation.
A confident recommendation of something that is pretty good.
Okay. Fair enough.
I also played Eco for a video I'm gonna make on it. So
cool.
I sent out a poll to people basically saying, I'm gonna make a Kingsfield 4 video, what other video should I make? And they said, you should do Thief. So I started doing Thief, but then I realized Kingsfield 4 is this super involved dungeon crawler, and there's so much level design you need to talk about, and then Thief is also a lot of level design you need to talk about, and I can't do both. So I just said,
that sounds
hey,
like too much.
I'm going to do Eco instead, because I know that game. That video will just sort of write itself.
So you said, hey, dumbasses, thanks for voting.
Yes. What, you thought this was a representative democracy? It's only democracy when I agree with it. Otherwise, it's just noise. Anyway, probably will do the Thief video sometime later. But so I replayed Eco. I was like, oh yeah, this is still good. I like this. I made the video on it. Do we want to talk about Eco?
I mean, I feel like I've beaten the game twice. I beat the original PS2 version and then the PS3 remaster.
Yeah.
I have fond memories of Eco.
I've only played a bit of it.
That's a game which like perfectly nailed not overstaying your welcome. Like Eco works as a 4 or 5 hour little game. Man, any longer and that thing would have fallen to pieces.
Yeah, I think by the end, it's like, okay, it's about time for this to end.
See, I didn't feel that. I felt like it was perfectly paced. Right? I never at any point was like, oh, when is this over?
No, that's not what I meant.
Oh.
More so like when you reach the end, you're like, yeah, it's about time for this to wrap up.
Yeah.
You know, not in a like exasperated sort of way, but just like, yeah, like you said, like this is a good time for things to stop. Because I feel like it pretty much like used up all of its ideas.
Yeah, it took its premise to every logical place it could without feeling bloated. I also I was reading a bunch of interviews and watching a lot of videos with Fumito Ueda, the director. Do you know what his biggest influence is?
I don't know.
Logan, do you know?
For Ico specifically?
No, just in life, in his creative work.
Oh. No.
Okay, so this is Fumito Ueda, celebrated director of The Last Guardian and Shadow of the Colossus. Like one of the all-time game designers. His biggest inspiration is watching movie trailers. And then he just pieces the story together in his head. I thought that was super weird, but it's like, yeah, I get that, kinda. Not really, but it's like...
I don't even know how to process that.
Yeah, like, it's...
That, honestly, I don't know why. That sounds like something more like what Hidetaka Miyazaki would say. And he's like, this is where... like, it sounds like, oh, this is part of the inspiration for, like, how I came up with the narrative structure of Dark Souls. But then, if you think about it, it kind of makes sense because, like, both Ico and Shadow of the Colossus also have these, like, kind of obscured narratives, I think is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
So you're not given all the details. And I think that's very intentional.
Yeah. Also, Hidetaka Miyazaki credited Ico as the game that made him want to make video games.
Yes, I remember that.
And when you play Demon Souls, and you play, like, it now makes total sense to me, like, oh, he loved the Kingsfield games, and he was supposed to make something in that spirit, and what he did was he just injected it with Ico, and that's where it comes from. It just makes total sense to me.
It's so weird, too, if you think about it, because Ico itself was not a huge hit. Kingsfield was a moderate hit.
Yeah.
But yet, he takes these two completely niche things, combines them, which you would expect to be, like, doubly niche, and it becomes mainstream almost.
Yeah. Ico, I think Ico is just one of those games also, which, like, if you want to... Not to say that you're not a real gamer, but this is one of those games which you just play, you know? It's been credited by enough really highly acclaimed creatives in the industry that you kind of want to know what it's about.
I know that Neil Druckmann, director of Last of Us, is a really big fan of Fumito Ueda. He loves Ico.
I think I may have... I feel like I skimmed an article headline which said something to the effect of Ico director Fumito Ueda like fanboys out at The Last of Us. So if my memory is serving me correctly, then the two are mutual fans of each other.
That's kind of nice. I know a lot of people don't like Neil Druckmann, and fair enough, he does seem like kind of an ass. But
that's only because of the bun in his hair. If he removed that and got a sensible haircut, he'd be a lot more reasonable, I feel. But also, Daniel, you'll like this. Do you know who produced Ico?
No.
So Ueda sent a 3-minute sort of demo video to Sony to get permission to make it, and they said, this guy has a lot of sort of, he has guts, he has creative gusto. What we're going to do is we're going to put him up with somebody who knows the PlayStation inside and out. Let's call up Kenji Kaito, producer of Ape Escape. And the two, I think, have worked together on... I think they worked together on his subsequent 2 games as well.
I did not expect that.
No.
That's
but it makes...
Ape Escape and Ico.
Yeah. But it makes kind of like, not really sense, but it's like, oh yeah, because Ape Escape, that's a kind of, at the time that was a really sort of, oh, you really managed to utilize the controller. And it's like, yeah, put him with Ico, it's fine. But anyway, I also played Kingsfield 4, I replayed it. Did I talk about it already on this podcast?
I don't think so.
So I'm not going to talk too much about it because there's so much to talk about. I would say this could be the best level design in any FromSoft game.
That is quite the claim.
Yeah, I know. I talked to Bogan about it, and I think he said the very same thing. But I feel like it could be true. It's not doing the same thing that Miyazaki's games are doing, so it's not a like apples to apples comparison. And it's also constrained by hardware much weaker than the Souls games were. But I maybe this is me coming off of the other 3 Kingsfields and seeing just this massive improvement, and that's sort of coloring my experience at the moment. You know, whenever you watch a movie like or play a game and you're sort of like still in the thick of it, it looks so much grander, and then some distance comes and you're like, I may have said some things I don't agree with anymore. This could be that, but I genuinely think there is some mastermind over at From Software who put this thing together, and I can't find out who it. It wasn't the director. And I think it was the producer, but I can't find out where this person is anymore. It feels like whenever I go into Silent Hill, it's like, oh yeah, Takayoshi Sato, this great mastermind behind Silent Hill 2. What's he doing now? Oh, he was the lead animator on Mario Tennis.
Poor Sato.
Well, not really. I mean, he probably gets a lot of money to be there, and...
No, I'm sure, but like to go from Silent Hill to Mario Tennis.
But yeah, I very much want to find out if they like. We've talked about, I think in passing, the potential of a Kingsfield 5. Having replayed this, I now no longer think you need Naotoshi Shin, the director of the original games, or producer of the original games, to come back. I think you can just get this guy to come back and make Kingsfield 5 if you decide to make it. My only gripe with the game is that there is nothing really connecting it with the original 3. It is a Kingsfield in name only. And that's because they didn't want to make a Kingsfield. They wanted to make just another, like they had done Eternal Ring, they'd done the Shadow Towers, and they wanted to do just another sort of Kingsfield-like game, but they also wanted it to sell, and their games didn't sell, so they went, what about the Kingsfield license? People know that. And then they just sort of, it is the Kingsfield game, like in visuals and all that, but it's like, this has no narrative connection to the original trilogy, and it's really weird, because there are so many moments where they could have done it, like the Ancient City. Why that isn't like on Melanat, why that isn't Verdite, I don't know, but it's not. And that's all I really want to talk about here, because this is the stuff I'm not gonna put into the video mostly, except the level design part. This is what I've been doing.
Cool. All right. Well, Boken, how about yourself?
Yeah, I've finished my second watch of Bojack Horseman, which I think is one of the best shows I've ever seen. Like in terms of Western shows, I think that show is just incredible, and I liked it even more on the second run. Daniel, you have finished it. I know that. Asa, I think
Yes.
you haven't seen the final season.
No, I think I'm halfway through the second to final season.
Okay. I don't know. The show does so much. It's hard to even talk about it. But it is I feel like it is a meta show on these new types of shows where everyone is fucked up and everyone revels in how fucked up they are. And they're trying to get better, but at the same time, if they get better, there is no more show there. And they keep playing with that, and I enjoy that a lot. It's just, especially they keep jabbing at Hollywood and how also in Hollywood people celebrate these fucked up characters, and they're very shallow about it. I don't know. It's a fantastic show. I think it's super funny. It has fantastic voice actors, and I'm glad it's over. I'm gonna say that. Like it ended exactly where it should have ended. The last season was.
Yeah, I agree with that. It kind of leaves things off in a way where it feels like their lives are just going to continue on from here. But
we don't need to see it.
Yeah. I kind of feel that at the end of most of the seasons, though, to be honest.
Well, yeah, the last season was different in a way because Bojack has changed a lot. And that is where his character actually gets somewhat completed.
The only season where I feel like that wasn't the case was, I think it was season 4, where it was either 3 or 4, where it ends with him going to rehab.
Yeah, that's...
And that one, that in particular really did feel like, oh, okay, no, we have to see what happens in the next season and see what goes on with him at rehab.
Yeah, I mean, that is the end of the... Wait, how many seasons are there? 5 or 6? But
I think there's 5.
Yeah, it's the end of the second to last season where he actually ends up accepting help. And that's what really changed him for the last season, where at that point also his character design changes. I mean, he stops coloring his hair and he gets new clothes, and that's just a visual representation of there actually being a new Bojack Horseman. And then it's kind of like the last season deals with him trying to change and having changed, but the shit he does or he has done keeps catching up with him, which makes it even more difficult for him to actually stay, not self-destructive. And yeah, it's Jesus, man, I fucking... I'm gonna say what I didn't like about the second run was the Todd character, because he is there to just give the show a little more levity, and he always goes off on his own wacky adventures. They even kind of comment on that within the show sometimes, and that's fine. I don't hate the character itself, but most of these adventures are very pointless. And you notice that on the second run, where I want to go through the big stuff. I want to go through the big plot points and the big twists and the big character moments, and then Todd keeps getting in the way of that, which was sometimes a bit annoying. But I think
I will to defend him a little bit though. I do like his I guess his B plot or his subplot of him being asexual. Like I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, you don't need to defend him, because I think he does what he does well. Like on the first run, you don't want the show to always be so cynical and so negative, and you need at least one character who does not completely sabotage himself.
Right, that's fair.
Yeah, and then yeah. But otherwise, I think there's a lot of detail that goes into these characters, and they all struggle with how hopeless it is for them to find happiness, and how they want to be bigger than they actually are, and they want to have more influence, but they never really achieve that, and a lot of it is about them trying to come to terms with it, that their lives aren't that meaningful, and that can be the harsh lesson to learn, but they work towards that, and I think these characters are really, really good.
So I need to ask, because I distinctly remember season 1 in particular feeling kind of out of place when compared to the other seasons. Did you get that feeling when you were rewatching?
Not really. Like, what about season 1 in particular?
It kind of came across to me when I reflected upon it after watching the rest of the show that like they hadn't quite figured out like what the show was going to be, and it felt goofier compared to how the other seasons would end up.
No, I did not get that.
Okay.
I think the first season is mainly about Diane writing the book about Bojack Horseman, right?
I want to say yeah.
Yeah, and that's, I don't know. I feel like even that book is part of the writers commenting on the show itself, where, I mean, they are themselves writing Bojack Horseman, and Diane within the show is also writing the book about Bojack Horseman, and then the point of that book is that she does not lie about him. She just observes him and then tells the world how he actually is. And at the end of the first season, the world reacts very positively to that because it's so honest and because he's such a relatable fuck up, you know. And that is actually what starts off most of Bojack's problems, or most of what the show actually comments about, which is these characters that have a lot of issues that they define themselves with, and that the people around them, they celebrate that. They celebrate these fucked up characters because they're so deep. And the people around them, like, not only celebrate them, but they use those characters to justify their own shitty behavior, and they justify not changing themselves. Because, the celebrities around them are so fucked up also.
Not only that, but because of the way that everyone is relating to and they appreciate the sincerity of it all, they're also enabling that behavior.
Yeah, it's like, well, these incredibly important people in my life and all these celebrities are really shitty, but they mean good. So I'm just going to be shitty, but at least I mean good and I'm never going to change. That's... Yeah.
Yeah, Bojack has that one moment where he's like, I forget what exactly was happening. Diane was on stage, and then Bojack starts talking to her from the audience, and he's like, just tell me that I'm a good person, right? Like, despite all the, the mistakes that I've made and all the fucked up things that I've done, just, aren't I still a good person at the end of the day? And, she couldn't really respond.
Yeah.
And that definitely feels like Bojack is just trying to find some way to reassure himself and to justify his own shittiness to himself.
Yeah.
And he was trying to use Diane for that because he knows on some level that if he were to self-reflect that he doesn't really deserve to be called a good person. So he needs someone else to validate him.
Yeah, he needs that outside validation. And that is also, there's another famous moment where Todd, like even Todd, has had enough. And he goes to Bojack and he's like, dude, you can't just do shitty things and then feel sorry about yourself because you're so fucked up. Like you need to actually get better. What the hell are you doing?
Yeah, I remember that. He was like, the problem isn't the drugs, the problem isn't the alcohol, it's you. It's always been just you.
Yeah, a lot of emotional gut punches in this show.
One of the best episodes is that funeral episode.
Oh God, that is. I'm actually. Well, we're going to talk about that later, but I'm writing a video about BoJack, and I'm going to talk about the funeral episode and a couple other ones.
Cool. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Wasn't there an episode where Bojack went under the sea and all the sardines were talking in Sardinese or something? And he couldn't talk to anyone, and it was like,
Yes,
oh,
and
it's like...
It's mostly sound and music, yeah.
Yeah, it's like
I'm
being
also
a foreigner.
I'm also
whatever.
writing about that episode.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I like that episode. I know that you expressed some, not being super enthused with that episode, but I liked
I
it.
just found it boring, and not particularly funny. But now that we have talked about it and I understand what they're trying to do, I appreciate it a bit more.
You know what? I probably dropped Bojack in that episode where he's just giving that eulogy or speech or something.
What? That's the best episode.
I know. I watched it and I was like, I can't. This isn't. There are not enough explosions for my. Now I'll get back to Bojack.
Can you
one
name
day.
any other show where there's a 26-minute monologue and that is the episode? Just one person talking in one room for 26 minutes. And I mean, apparently you didn't care for it, but I think that that whole thing is riveting as fuck. I've seen it four times now.
I wouldn't say I didn't care for it. It's more just that I couldn't be contained. I was like too jittery. I'm like sitting in my chair, like, okay, now I need to keep moving. My ADD kept me from getting into it. There's probably an episode of Frasier where he's just on the phone with somebody for 20 minutes.
Not that I've seen, but maybe.
No. Nah, you know what? Then probably, even then, he would have talked to Ross.
I feel
and
like
somebody on the phone.
Well, yeah. I feel like Frasier didn't have that kind of artistic aspiration.
No. They're talking about bringing it back. I know Kelsey Grammer has been shopping the show around.
Of course.
I'd be interested if they do something different, but they also have to because John Mahoney, God rest his soul, has passed away. But it can't be Frasier as a 60-year-old man still trying to find love. You can't do that. To do something different.
Or just don't do anything at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, Bojack Horseman was great. I also want to talk about fighting games.
You like fighting games?
Don't you always?
You guys are going to be very happy that I'm talking about fighting games.
But regale us with tales
just...
of fighting games. I've never heard of this.
I'm at the edge of my seat, Bogan. Please.
Well, I've written down here on our topics list that fighting games are embarrassing, and that is an epiphany I've had recently, which is. I mean, I talked about this before this year in particular, where I wanted to really go to tournaments and really practice and, travel to other countries in Europe.
Why didn't you? He asks like an idiot.
But it is specifically the pandemic right now that has made me realize how fucking terrible fighting games actually are. Because... the fighting game community has tried to keep up the tournaments online, and it is just a shit show. Like the Capcom Pro Tour, which is the series of tournaments where you play throughout the year, and then the people with the most points get invited to the Capcom Cup at the end of the year. They've changed that to the Capcom Online Pro Tour or Pro Tour Online, whatever. And they've made their brackets. Europe is going to play together, North America, South America, And I don't even watch that shit because Street Fighter V online has never been good. It is a terrible fucking netcode. And everyone complains about that all the time. And that has been the level of these online tournaments, where just people crying on Twitter the whole time, like, oh, this has been laggy. Some asshole who's probably on Wi-Fi comes to the tournament and I can't beat him because this is unplayable. And yeah, there have been other things with, people complaining about lag and then dropping out or demanding that their games are being replayed, and then some of them are top players, so they get that privilege. And it's just shit show every time. Like, these tournaments have been going on every other weekend, and it's just been fucking trash. And the worst thing about it is, I realized that Street Fighter V, as terrible as it is online, it's still the best online fighting game right now, because for one, it has the most people playing, and there's also this thing called rollback netcode. I don't know if you...
I was waiting for this.
Yes. Okay, so you have heard about this?
I have heard about rollback netcode and that it's better than
delay netcode.
What delay? Okay,
yeah.
That's what it's called. And that Japanese companies have been like really dragging their heels about implementing the rollback, despite the fact that it's better.
Exactly. And the fighting game community, like fighting games, are really dependent on Japan. Because all the good fighting games come from Japan. There are a few Western fighting games, and it's like Skullgirls. The only Western ones I can think of are Skullgirls and Mortal Kombat and Injustice, both from the NetherRealm. Those games. Yeah, I was gonna say Mortal Kombat and Injustice are both made by the same company. And then there's Killer Instinct. And funnily enough, the Western fighting games have really good netcode, which is kind of. But yeah, no one wants to play them. They're trash. They're dumb. They play like shit. They're clunky. NetherRealm is still stuck with their dumb dialer combo inputs, and Mortal Kombat still has a block button. Just fuck off with that shit. That's so terrible. So you have this dichotomy of Japanese games being better but shittier online. You have the Western games that are shittier but have better online. And it's so sad. Like, that is what I realized. Without these tournaments where we can play offline, and also even when I'm not going to the tournaments, I want to watch offline play, because that's where all the pros gather and can have an actual fair match under perfect conditions, and then the games are fun. And it's not only Street Fighter, it's also Tekken, it's Dragon Ball, all these Japanese games, Soul Calibur, all that shit. And those games just, they play like shit. They all have delay netcode that is terrible. Like, imagine a delay-based connection on a game where you have to make all these super precise timed inputs, and then oh boy, Jesus, that was awful. And like, you need to hit your button in 1/60th of a second, and then you're telling me you're going to give me a delay-based system where the delay with which my input is registered comes out at different times depending on how good the connection is. Like, fuck that. What are you doing? That is so terrible. And so I don't want to play fighting games right now because I miss the tournaments. Online is trash, and the games are slowly dying. There's nothing really happening. All of these games are kind of on life support, and it's just not fun anymore. And I don't have anything to for. And then, that's why I've been jumping into Valorant. I've been mostly playing Valorant, and, you play that. Like, the netcode is great. There are tournaments going on. No one, doubts these tournaments because the online environment is good enough, and you can watch the pros play, and they can hit the headshots and all that. And Valorant, it just came out, but there have been multiple patches in the last couple months. There has been a new character. There have been new skins, balance changes. Riot is surprisingly open in their communication about how they're designing their games and taking in feedback from the community and responding to it. And all of that shit is like, it's the fighting games are so ghetto. That is what I realized. Like, they're so sad. There's so few people playing them. Every fucking, like, I'm following 3 Valorant channels on YouTube now that are pumping out in-depth guides every single day. And then try to play Street Fighter V and find an in-depth tutorial for your character. That shit doesn't exist. Because there's no one making content. Because
maybe that should have been you, Boken.
Yeah, but I also want to play. Like, I have made fighting game tutorials before. Some of them have performed pretty well. But no one's making enough money to actually profit from it. And no one's watching these fighting game tutorials enough so that there are professional producers of video content. And so, I don't know, like, all in all, fighting games. Shit netcode, small player base that keeps being divided with all the different games. There's no money to be made because all the pros barely survive on these sponsorship deals. The developers, especially the Japanese developers, are really ignorant towards what the fans want. They're really ignorant in how they communicate to everyone. And we are still like their bitches. And it's just, I don't know. I know I'm rambling, but Jesus, this pandemic has made me realize how fucked up this genre is and why it's still so small after all these years.
It does seem to me then there is a massive like business opportunity for somebody to make a Mortal Kombat or a Street Fighter quality game with good netcode, somebody who just listens to the community. If there is such a massive problem about this, why is nobody going, hey, there's a big issue here. We should just capitalize on solving it.
I'm not sure, because I think part of it is that you need some kind of brand that you can work with.
Yeah.
Like, you need some big name where the characters are all recognizable. And that also draws in the casuals. And then fighting games...
The Essays and Espresso fighting game.
And all the fighting games right now are really catered towards casuals, or at least they try to bring the skill floor down really hard so that even bad players can at least somewhat play. And that always affects how the game is played on the highest level, and often in a bad way. So it's just player retention in fighting games is an issue.
So casuals can play with the pros, or so? Like, is it brought down in that way, or?
Well, partially it's just that even if you don't know, if you are not good at all these complex inputs, and you're just mashing buttons, you can still achieve something. I mean, we've had auto combos where you just press one button and the character will do a combo into super. Like, just by mashing one button. What the fuck? And in Street Fighter...
I remember Blaze Blue Calamity Trigger had something like that, where you would just, like, move the right analog stick, and that would initiate the combo.
I think that's probably some kind of easy mode that you can disable.
No, it was just part of the controls.
Daniel exposed himself as a casual here.
Okay, I haven't played Calamity Trigger, but that sounds wrong. I don't know.
I played a lot of Calamity Trigger, and that was just part of the controls. You could just move the right analog stick, and then you would just, do combos.
I don't know.
Is the reason...
What do you mean you don't know? I'm just telling you how the game was.
You don't know what you're talking about.
What do you mean I don't know what I'm talking about? You never played the game.
Okay, Daniel. How would you move the right analog stick? Like, you're moving with that. How would you do combos?
No, you're moving with the left one, not the right one.
That sounds terrible.
That does sound terrible.
What? Who moves their character with the right analog
like doing
stick?
inputs. Also, you don't play fighting games. You play fighting games with the D-pad.
Well, obviously, I would play with a D-pad. Some people would play with the analog stick, but I agree, you play with a D-pad. But like, I'm just telling you, that's how the game played. You could move the right analog stick left, right, up, or down, and those would be different inputs.
Okay.
Did I ever tell you guys of the time where Yu-Gi-Oh had a rule update so that you couldn't come to a tournament smelling bad?
I think you did, yeah.
So,
Yes, you did.
is there anything like that in the fighting game community?
Yeah, well, there's this joke about Smash players smelling bad.
Take that, Nintendo fans. Smash
Oh
players
man,
are gonna
don't
come
get
out
me
of the
started on
woodwork.
Smash. Like, I would almost be interested in playing Smash Brothers Ultimate online, but that has the worst netcode of all.
Oh,
And like,
How
there
can-
isn't even an Ethernet port on the Nintendo on the Switch. How stable do you think these connections are going to be?
how does Miyamoto
Not
keep
very.
getting away with it?
You can't even make proper lobbies in Smash Bros. Ultimate. You can only
Yeah.
play these one-on-ones on a normal plane with no extra platforms for like 2 minutes, and like it's just that one mode. No, like counting stocks, 2 minutes, one-on-one. You can not change anything about that. That is the matchmaking. You can't even make proper lobbies. It is so dumb. Nintendo's whatever.
Hey,
Fuck everything.
Is there a PlayStation All Stars on the PlayStation 4?
Probably not. I think there's only been one.
Maybe you should. Maybe you can become the master of that. Let's revitalize that community.
Well, I just need to pick it up, and I'm going to be the master of that because there's no one
Nobody
else playing.
playing that. That's so misguided of Sony to be like, oh yeah, Nintendo with all their wacky, like unique characters. You know what we have? A bunch of third-person shooters. Let's make a fighting game.
We have
Hey,
Nathan
they're
Drake.
broken.
Dante from the. We have the worst version of Dante from Devil's May Cry. The Devil May Cry.
They had
Hey,
like
Boken,
Ratchet
the-
there
the-
with all of his guns. They had Nathan Drake with his guns. They had the guy from Killzone with his guns. I think Jack was there with his guns.
Remember
It's like
when
this.
Remember when they implemented Raiden because the actual good MGS character was already in Smash Bros?
Yeah, that's really sad that Sony couldn't be like, oh no, we should get the Metal Gear guys. Metal Gear is like that's so close to being our franchise. Now, like Nintendo just took Snake. Sony, what are you doing? They have a lot of
who knows?
they have a lot of unique characters they could have done a good fighting game with. Not Nathan Drake.
Yeah, they had a lot of odd choices. They had a lot of better characters that they could have used, and they just, I don't know, it just felt like, here are all the rejects.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I think Jack, Sly Cooper, Ratchet and Clank, you could have used, like, those make sense to me. Like, those could all have sort of different moves. They put Sir Daniel from Medieval in there. That makes sense. Kratos makes sense.
yeah,
But then it's just a bunch of third-person shooters. And Dante.
no, yeah, they had they had a bunch of characters that just make you scratch your
Like
head.
Fat
It's
Princess.
why?
Who is this? Parappa the Rapper. Excuse me?
I guess Big Daddy is not a bad idea for a fighting game character, but it doesn't scream Sony.
No, you can't, don't brand yourself with third parties. I'm gonna wait for Xbox All-Star Battle Royale with Master Chief, Marcus
And the
Phoenix,
Arbiter.
Banjo
The car from
Kazooie.
Forza.
The cars from Forza. That actually, like, conceptually sounds interesting to me. Like a fighting game where
Sure.
one of the fighters is just a car.
I think that could only work if it was like an arena fighter, like one of those anime fighting games.
I don't know. I think that there's probably some crazy way you can do it. Like you need to,
What, in like a Smash Brothers
yeah,
setting?
like get somebody like get a visionary to put that together for me. I want to see that.
I guess you put hydraulics in the car so it can jump.
Oh, yes.
Well, this writes itself.
Instead of punches, it just like drives a bit forwards and then stops. When it backs off, you get like beep, beep, beep because you can't turn.
When you try to taunt, it's a honk.
Oh, when an uppercut is the hood popping open. See, this is
The projectile is it like shooting out oil and gasoline.
no, it's just the guy throwing like a paper cup out the window. Man, we should be making this.
So anyways, I've been doing stuff. So have either of you heard of a game called Florence?
No, we established it before the show. I have never heard of it.
I have
Logan?
heard of it, but that's it.
Okay, so Florence it was originally a phone game, but I played the Steam version. It's very, very short. You can beat it between like 20, 30 minutes. Like super short. Has no dialogue. It's all visuals and music, and it's great. It's honestly like really good. I strongly recommend it. You can get it for a couple of bucks. It's not very expensive. It's basically about this girl named Florence, and it shows you stuff that happens in her life, and I think it's really great. The music is very nice. The visuals are very interesting. Its use of interactivity, I thought was really effective. It's not like particularly fun, quote unquote, to play. Like, you're not going to be solving any like brain teasers or anything like that, but that's not really the point. Every part of the game where you interact with it has meaning in that it says something about the characters, their relationships with each other, and the emotional state of those characters. So like there's one part where you have to decide, I'm going to put this furniture in this room. And even though the actual decisions themselves that you make don't actually mean anything, it at the same time, it feels like it does because these are like the personal objects of these characters, and you have to make it like the conscious decision. It's like, oh, I'm going to put this here. I'm going to put this in storage. And it has like a certain level of intimacy to it that I feel is missing in a lot of games where like just these objects have like they convey this meaning to them that otherwise, in any other game, wouldn't. And one of the things I also really liked is the way that the game gets across like a conversation is you're never really, you can get an idea of what the conversation might be, but you're never told the specifics. But in order to have these conversations, you have to put these puzzle pieces together. And it's very simple, but the way that the game is able to convey them through the puzzle pieces is that like sometimes they'll be really easy to do, and that is supposed to like get across like, oh, this conversation is flowing very well. And sometimes they'll be a little bit more difficult, and that kind of implies like, oh, they're having an argument, like, and the pieces will look more jagged. It's little things like that and like little details like that that really makes the most out of like very little, very simple like playable sections of the game. So I say give it a shot. I think it's very, very nice. And I think you guys would enjoy it. It's very good.
Okay.
No questions about it?
No, I mean, Like, if it's really just half an hour, why would I want to know more?
Fair enough. All right. So getting away from that, I beat The Last of Us.
Hey!
The first one.
I've been very unsatisfied with your Twitter comments.
Sorry, I liked it. I think it's pretty good. Yeah, I don't think you and I see eye to eye on this. Like, I do think the game was severely overhyped. Like, it's definitely not. Stop doing that, Acer. He's fucking with the Google Doc.
You're ruining the review. What are you talking about?
So I actually found the gameplay a lot more fun than I thought I was. Like, a lot of people made it seem like it was just Uncharted with zombies, and
No.
That's not
I
that.
think that sells it. I think that sells it short. Like, I don't think any of the gameplay is amazing, but I think it all comes together in a way that feels mostly pretty solid. I think the biggest issue with the gameplay is the really inconsistent AI. Like, the enemy AI at times feels really smart, and then at other times feels incredibly stupid. And it really feels like it may have needed more time in the oven to make it work.
It really feels like this was like breaking the PlayStation 3 to get this going.
Yeah, for sure. Like, one thing that always really bothered me is, like, when you get spotted, like, all the enemies know. And that just, like, never, because, like, there are certain parts of the game where, like, I would kind of try to approach it in, like, because the game makes a concerted effort to place a lot of emphasis on realism. So I would treat it that way, and it always bothered me when I was betrayed for doing that. So, like, let's say, like, I got an enemy, and he didn't make a sound, but he did see me. But he didn't say anything, and I choked him out. But because the game registered that the character saw me, it notified all of the other AI, oh, okay, this is where the player is. All the enemies know they have to come find, not to go get me now because they know where I am. Even though that realistically doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
You know, and it really bothered.
Realism is really out the window with the dumbest bat vision.
That's true.
I think,
but like,
I think it also just could have been as simple as the enemy seeing you and immediately shouting "here."
Yes, like Metal Gear Solid 2 figured this shit out. Like, if you shoot an enemy's walkie-talkie and then they see you and they try to radio in and the walkie-talkie doesn't work, then the alarm doesn't go off. Like, and if you get spotted and you didn't shoot out their radio, you still had that time before they radio in and say, "Hey, we found him."
Yeah.
So how is it that Metal Gear Solid 2 it did a better job of this, back in like 2000 or whenever it came out?
Because Kojima is a better game designer than Neil Druckmann and Bruce Straley.
Ooh.
Yeah, there's an issue with modern stealth games where you're either, like, the games work in states, and you're either in stealth and not seen, or you're like fully in combat, and then every enemy on the map will fight you. There's no in between. I mean, there's obviously, this guard has seen you and he's checking you out, but you're still hidden. But the moment the combat phase is initiated, every enemy is in combat. And then the same with the zombies too, where like you fuck up with one zombie and suddenly the rest of them come running to you, even though the zombie didn't even make any sounds to alert them or anything. It's just like, oh fuck, there he is.
Yeah, that was one thing that really did bug me about the game, was just how inconsistent that was. Where like sometimes it came across to me like, yeah, I fucking nailed this. I was super stealthy. I got the enemies, no problem. But then for some reason that I don't understand, it still initiated that combat state. that they would go into, and they would all find me, and I'm like, how? I didn't do it. They didn't see me. You know, that was like, those are like my biggest issues with the gameplay. That aside, though,
wait, can I say one more issue I have with the gameplay, which I
Sure.
noticed more in 2, but it is the game will give you the bat vision, which I think is dumb for a game that wants to be that realistic. But at the same time, it does not give you clear indicators of whether you're hidden or not, and I found that really annoying. Like, the game lets you know if you're hidden by sound, and if Ellie is seen from somewhere, or Joel is seen, whatever. You get these noises that keep rising in pitch and volume.
yes,
And
Yes.
I find it really annoying and difficult to parse these like I noticed that in 2 when I'm like diving underwater and I'm coming up somewhere and I just hear the noise that someone sees me. I don't know where and how far away he is, and you know.
Yeah, and here's the thing. In the first game, I don't know how it is in the second, but sometimes you would hear that noise, and it wasn't because the combat state has been initiated, but just that an enemy has noticed something odd
Yeah,
and is going to investigate. And there's no at least from what I can recall, there's no distinction in the noises.
no, there's you get the noise even when you're in line of sight of an enemy somewhere. But between that noise starting and the enemy actually getting suspicious and coming to check you out, there's some span in there that is completely unclear. It is really hard to plan that out. And that is part of, I feel like, the third person perspective that really doesn't lend itself that well to stealth gameplay.
I think it's more so that Naughty Dog want to do that cinematic thing where the HUD element is as clean as possible. Because for, say, Metal Gear Solid 5, they give you, like, indication cones for where you're seen.
Yeah,
And
they give you a
that
minimap.
cleans it up a lot. But Naughty Dog wants to be more cinematic, which probably doesn't gel well with the stealth as is, at least.
Yeah.
Although I'm sure there
but-
there could have probably been a way to fix it if they'd had time.
I will say though, like, that's one of the things I kind of liked about The Last of Us was how gamey it felt. Like, yeah, it was trying to be really gritty and realistic and grounded or whatever, but then you would also be picking up like gears and shit and random pills and, you know, and that would like make Joel, you know, health increase, and or you can like now because you picked up a gear, you could put a scope onto your rifle, and like I really appreciate how stupidly gamey that was. And I feel like the Uncharted games weren't willing to be that gamey by comparison. And I don't know. I had more fun with The Last of Us than any Uncharted game. Uncharted games, I've actually been playing a little bit of the Uncharted game on the Vita, and
The Golden Compass or whatever.
Yeah, the Golden Abyss, and yeah, that is like such basic ass gameplay. And and again, it's not anything like amazing, it's not anything like super impressive, but like the gameplay of The Last of Us is fun. It's pretty enjoyable for what it is. Like the guns feel good.
The combat,
snapping people.
The combat feels incredibly hectic all the time, like the reticule sway and all that stuff.
Yeah, there's an intensity to the gameplay that's like totally absent in Uncharted. Uncharted feels kind of weighty. It feels floaty, while Last of Us has like a nice weight to it.
Yeah. But Last of Us also has, compared to Uncharted, it has so many more like moment-to-moment decision-making in the combat, whereas in Uncharted, it kind of changed with 4, but for the most part, it's I'm just going to stand behind this wall and periodically shoot out when an enemy pops his head open.
Yeah.
Which is such a bad way to emulate that Indiana Jones like action serial fighting. Because surely you would like to be on a train and just fist fighting somebody. That's
but that's why you use the iron knuckle.
What?
Didn't we talk about this before? Where like there's this state when you shoot someone in Uncharted and then you run up to them and punch them. It's an instant knockout.
So, you mean Spec Ops?
No, I mean Uncharted. What the fuck?
Yeah, there probably is that, but it's more so that I don't know. Maybe there are too many enemies in Uncharted because, like, I certainly the point of Drake should be that, like, I like him swinging around on ropes. That's sort of Tarzan-y, but it doesn't feel like he's a serial action star when he's just covering in grass and mowing down the enemies. I feel like it has to be a bit sillier.
Well, what I'm getting at is there has been this complaint about Uncharted 1 that it spawns too many enemies and the shootouts drag on. And I saw a video about that where the guy basically made the argument, no, you're supposed to use it's called Iron Knuckle or whatever, like that specific, you shoot someone, you run up to them and you punch them and they're dead. Which, of course, brings a lot more mobility into the combat instead of just staying behind some kind of cover and shooting out.
Yeah, but if you get out of cover and you try to run out in the open and try to punch someone, you're going to get shot.
Why you need to use the cover strategically, and you need to be in the parts where you can actually flank people.
Yeah, but like even then, that doesn't even like. It seems to me more that Uncharted combat should just be fisticuffs. And the occasional, here's a gun a Nazi left behind like 70 years ago when they were here. Or, this is like a caravan from the Soviets. They crashed here in the Ural Mountains and here's a shotgun. It has 3 bullets. And that's just like area level specific like insta-kills which you have access to for 3 enemies. But for the most part it should be silly fisticuffs, yeah.
So like the Arkham games where it's mostly fisticuffs, and the moment the enemies get guns, you need to be stealthy.
Yeah, something more like that. Not as like extreme. Maybe have fewer enemies, but I don't know. I can't tell them how to make better Uncharted games. I don't know how, but I know that I don't like them the way they've done it so far.
I mean, I've only beaten 1. I've played like half of 2 and half of Golden Abyss. And like, I don't know if 3 is any better. I don't know if 4 is any better. I don't know if Lost Legacy is any better. But it's fucking boring.
You know what?
Not good games.
Uncharted 4 introduced that hook rope thing. Maybe that should have just been Drake's weapon. He like throws that in the face of an enemy and that'll just knock the enemy, like stagger him for a bit. And then you do the iron knuckle thing. Maybe don't have Drake have so many guns. Right? And he's just, it's Indiana Jones' whip. He's just really good with that rope thing. I don't know. Anyway, Last of Us. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, getting back to The Last of Us. So, I enjoyed the gameplay. I think it's pretty good. Not like I said before, not anything amazing, but it's enjoyable. Now, for the story, I definitely have more issues with the story. But I'd still say overall, I like the story and characters. But holy shit, people have severely overblown the quality of it. Like, some people say it's like the greatest story in video games or whatever. And like, it's not even close. And not even close. It's not even the best video game story about zombies.
It's not even the best video game story Naughty Dog made.
What would you say is the best?
The Last of Us 2. No, I like the Jack games. I know they're silly, but I like them more.
Because I was going to say, this is, for me at least, the best story Naughty Dog has done. But
I would actually say 2 has a better story, but yeah. Do you remember Mike?
Last of Us 2?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Do you remember
I haven't
about The Last of Us 1? Like the writing in particular?
I remember you had a problem with Joel going back for Ellie.
What?
In the end.
Everyone should have a complaint with that, but okay. That's
no, I don't.
That's also not what I meant. I meant the time skip, where we basically skip all of Joel's character development, and we don't.
That I agree with.
Okay.
I do think the time skips are kind of cheap, and
It's a crutch.
the Last of Us DLC called Left Behind, that one kind of rectifies the time skip to the winter part of the game, and it gives us like, oh, okay, this is how Ellie took care of Joel. It kind of, I said this on Twitter, and some people are telling me like, no, you're wrong, but it kind of felt like cut content to me, like, because it felt like it could have been inserted into the base game, and I don't think much would have been lost. Someone made the point like, well, some of the intrigue would have been lost from the cut to the winter chapter, and I could see that. I think that's fair, but I also think its inclusion kind of rectifies some issues.
I think
Sure.
it's fine as is, because that DLC, like, I probably will never play The Last of Us again,
Yeah.
but I would absolutely never play it if it meant I had to play that boring
That
DLC
yeah,
in the
holy
middle.
fuck. That's
Fair enough, like,
throw
the
rocks at the car with Ellie's friend. What's her name?
Don't you know you're supposed to feel the bond
Oh,
between
yeah.
her and Riley?
Yeah.
Please enjoy this.
Why
very
can't I throw the
well-written
rock at
Zoomer
Riley?
dialogue. No, but my complaint was that the game is mostly about Joel's conflict, about opening up to another daughter character, and we skip his trauma. We skip from the moment his daughter dies to however many years later. We do not
That's
see
true.
It was
him.
20.
We do not see him develop the trauma that he's fighting with, which was why I was so confused when he was giving Ellie over to whatever his brother's name is.
The Fireflies?
No, what his brother's name is.
Tommy.
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 He wants to give Ellie over to Tommy so Tommy can get her to the hospital. And I was like, wait, he's leaving? Was that his plan all along? I did not get that at all. And then Ellie has this big hissy fit where she hides in that house. And I was so confused because I didn't even understand this was what Joel had planned all along, because it didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
No, I think it makes... I agree with you that there wasn't a good build-up to that because it wasn't made clear that was what his intentions were. But I think in a logical sense, what he was trying to do makes sense because Tommy has like his whole group, you know, he has more resources. And from that perspective, it makes more sense because she'd be better protected.
In a logical sense, he can just join them.
Yeah.
He's one more
Sure.
person. Like, why the fuck does he have to give her over at all? And the reason was because he didn't want to
Yeah.
get too attached. And that
Yes.
fear of attachment was not established at all, in my opinion.
No, I don't agree with that. I think that the fear of attachment was made really clear with their interactions. Like he always kept her at like at arm's length, you know, up to that point. Like the way that they're like I remember there was one, this to be fair, this was optional, but like there was one interaction that they had that I really liked where Ellie looked at this movie poster and Joel starts opening up a little bit and he starts talking about like, oh yeah, I saw that movie, and Ellie was asking him about the movie, and then she asked like, oh, you know, who dragged you to see it, and he's like, no, I don't remember, let's go.
No, that is true, but that is where they already started bonding, which is why I never understood that Joel then falls back to them not having already bonded. Like he wanted to cut that short because of the trauma with his daughter, and we did not see that trauma at all. We did not see it affect him.
Yeah. I think
sure,
it is.
like, I can...
I think there's a problem, sort of related to what Bogan is saying, in that I don't know why he is so sheltered about having another daughter. I get that his girl died, but, and I don't like want to bring reality into this. Most people in my sort of not family, but friends of family and all that. Most people I know tangentially who lose children, their first move is not to distance themselves from children. Their first move generally is to have another kid. Like, I went to preschool with this boy who got meningitis, and he passed away, and we were all rushed to the hospital. And his parents, like, it was terrible for them, but they had more kids after that. Like, the immediate jump from Joel losing his daughter to him being this grizzled guy who doesn't want children or doesn't want to open up. I don't quite buy it. I feel like there's a scene missing.
I don't know. I mean, I feel well. You also have to consider that people, the way that they cope with trauma is different. You can't just apply like, oh well, this family did it this way, so Joel has to do it the same way. I don't agree with that.
No, but I'm saying that's not. Well, I feel like I can kind of. I'm not saying it's bad that he became the way he does. I'm saying I feel like there's one scene missing where I need to see the transition. I can't see him mourn his daughter and then see him just be this super cold person.
I definitely agree with you guys that the time skip between the prologue of the game to like 20 years later carries with it some unfortunate consequences, and that is what you guys. And you know what? Even the time skip could have been rectified if we had gotten like a flashback, or like, you know, if more indication was given about like what exactly like Joel went through during that time, and to give us a better idea of the person that he became in that 20-year time skip. I definitely agree with that.
There could have been little flashbacks when Ellie talks to him and he reminds her, she reminds him of something he has experienced with his daughter. And then it's like, that could be a playable flashback or something to establish that connection.
Sure, I don't disagree with that.
And also the problem is that he didn't have much of a life, as far as we saw. What the fuck is he going back to? And why would he want to get there?
He's going back there to those gangs that hate him.
Yeah,
like just
shitty, dirty Boston or whatever.
Sure, yeah. I think it just comes back to he didn't want to get close to Ellie because of what happened with his daughter, and then, you know, throughout the course of the game, he ends up getting close to her anyways, and the two of them become inseparable by the end of the game.
Yes, he cannot watch authority take another kid away from him by the end. Like I think that's stupid, but I think that stupid in like the moral sense of what he does, but I don't think it's badly set up, and I don't think it's out of character, and I do think that is sort of an earned moment of moral messiness in the end.
I don't know.
Sure, I don't think the game presents it in a way like you're supposed to agree with Joel.
No, but
and I actually like that. I actually like that about the ending, where like me and Joel were actually like not on the same page. I didn't like, but at the same time, I could see where he was coming from. I didn't agree with what he was doing, but at the same time, I was like, well, you know, I know how much Ellie means to you at this point in the story.
Did you know there were audio logs you can find in the game? In the end, there are audio logs where... What's the leader of the Fireflies? What's her name?
I think it was Sam?
Maybe. Anyway, where the leader of the Fireflies, or one of the doctors maybe, where they're talking about, we've tried this before and it didn't work. Or maybe they said something to the effect of, we have other candidates for this. It was like, there was some moment, there was an audio log which sort of softballed, like it just sort of threw the punch in the end. No.
That's no. I know what tape recording you're talking about, and that's not what happened.
Then maybe what did that tape say?
They were talking about they've made previous attempts at a vaccine, but that they've never had anyone like Ellie.
We may be talking about different audio logs, but because I have this distinct memory of having heard an audio log and feeling like, ooh, wait a minute, then maybe Joel isn't so bad, but I don't know, maybe I'm remembering incorrectly. That's totally possible. I mean, it's been 8 years or whatever since I played, 7 years since I played it.
I mean, maybe I didn't listen to the one that you're talking about, but I'm pretty sure it's the same one. And the implication that I got from it was that they were just talking about previous attempts at making a vaccine, but that Ellie was a special case. They had never had anyone like Ellie before.
I'm thinking now, the implication of your audio log would seem to make it pretty difficult to argue my audio log exists. I'm probably remembering incorrectly then.
I think the implication of the ending for me is pretty clear. What Joel is doing is fucking wrong, but he's doing it out of this his emotional attachment to Ellie, because he sees Ellie as like not a replacement, but like it's his daughter figure at this point.
I think the ending would work better if he didn't also gun down a bunch of innocent people.
You mean the doctors?
The doctors and the fireflies.
Yeah, well, the doctors are optional for memory.
Well, I mean,
not according to
the firefly.
No,
I mean, the fireflies are all trying to kill you. So, like, you don't have much of a choice.
I don't remember anymore, but I feel there was no scene where he actually gets in there and there's some kind of talk, right? That escalates, and then he has to start shooting. Like, he goes in there, guns
Isn't there a scene
right?
where they're trying to escort him out, and they make it pretty clear, like, you're going out, and then he takes the gun off somebody and shoots them? Is that another scene I imagined?
I don't know, because when I got in there, I just shot the surgeons, and then I got Ellie and left.
No, I mean before that, because he delivers Ellie, and then he's walked out, isn't he?
He's walked out by a soldier, and the soldier has him at gunpoint. And the soldier's being a dick about it. He's just like, hey, get the fuck up, move, get out of here. Just give me an excuse and I'll shoot you. And I feel like that attitude was
unwarranted.
Part of the reason.
Very unwarranted, considering he just delivered Mankind's savior to you guys, but okay.
Yeah, but I also feel like that attitude was part of the reason why Joel did what he did. Like, because it started sparking those memories of when he was with his daughter, so like, you know, these I think for Joel it was an opportunity for him to
right the wrong,
like save his daughter this time. Like he is literally facing a soldier.
Yeah,
that is, you know. And I think he's, in his mind, this soldier might as well be the same one that killed his daughter. And I feel like it's coming full circle.
Maybe I need to replay The Last of Us 1.
See, the thing is, I feel like The Last of Us 1, if you know these scenes, like you know the one where Ellie leaves, you know the beginning and you know the ending, you're not missing much. There's a lot of somewhat filler in between, I feel like.
Yeah, but it's really well-made filler. It's a beautiful game. I think, like we said earlier, the combat, I think, is really sort of hectic. It makes you... There's a real weight to it, and it's not the best game ever made, but it's not boring.
Yeah, I feel like plot-wise, it's pretty uneventful, but I think it makes up for that by having some nice character moments.
Actually,
you know...
Can we talk a bit about David? Nolan North's character?
I gotta say, when I found out Nolan North did that character, I was shocked. Like, I did not realize he had that range, but like, they've typecasted him as fucking Nathan Drake, so...
See, yeah.
That was great. I really like that character.
Yeah, I like that entire chapter. In that,
hey, no, wait! I like the chapter too, except for the fact that David kept teleporting. What the fuck was up with that? Like when you leave the house, all of a sudden he blindsides Ellie. When you get to the restaurant, all of a sudden he knows where Ellie is. Like that was dumb. That was so dumb.
Yeah, but I like the implication of that in that this David character and his people, these are ostensibly normal, regular human beings. They've just been pushed through absolute hell by this world, and now they're these psychopathic cannibals. And then Ellie is sort of, like, she comes in there with the best of intentions, sort of. She's a bit skeptical of them from memory. But then, like, they spring on her that they're these monsters. But then Joel, who's, like, an equally crazy person in another direction, he's able to come in there and sort of... It seemed like when that scene was playing out, it's always seemed to me like, oh, Joel's gonna come in there and he's gonna lay down the law, but he doesn't. Ellie does. She just kills David, and the only thing Joel does is just like to take her away. I like that.
Something I really appreciated about the ending of that sequence is that Joel did not take away Ellie's agency. Like, she was the one that took down David.
Yeah.
David was the one that was like forcing himself on her, and he was the one that was trying to take away her sense of agency, and she reclaimed it back on her own and fucking slaughtered the shit out of him.
Was that sexual assault, or was he just going to kill her and eat her? Like I said, it's been 7 years.
I think it kind of implied both.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't overt about it, but like, there was like lines of dialogue here and there, like, oh, that girl Ellie, that's his new pet.
Oh.
So, Boken, is there anything, do you have anything to add?
Well, I'm curious what you think about Last of Us 2, and if you've played it, then we can actually do a spoiler talk, which I've been itching to.
Well, we've already done a spoiler talk on the first one, so we might as well do it on the second one. I did start up the second one, but all I did was watch like the intro cutscene, and I got control of Ellie, and then I just put it down because it was late.
Prepare
last
to
night.
Watch a lot of cutscenes.
First, you had to ride down a forest for 20 minutes, and then you push Ellie across the street for 20 minutes, and then at some point you can start playing.
So I want to ask, because like you said that you were disappointed in my tweets about The Last of Us. Is there anything in particular I said that you took issue with?
Well, you didn't hate it. That's the issue.
He's got you there.
I think I've been pretty reasonable about the game.
I'm being facetious. I just don't care much for the game. I understand that the gameplay is not terrible. I think the writing is way overhyped.
I feel like
it's definitely way overhyped. I'm not going to contest that, but I've tried the best I can. Like, that's why I'm playing the game now, because it's so far removed from the hype at this point for me. I feel like I was able to like just appreciate it more on its own, and I found it to be pretty good. Like, yeah, it's not the best fucking thing ever, but it's good.
Yeah. I think we talked about this a few episodes ago, but there's also just, I think a lot of the critical hype around the game was that it was a mainstream game for... So it was like Ellie is a prominent female character, and she's not like, she wasn't wearing a bra or anything like that in the promotional material. And I think,
well, she's also like 13 or 14. That wouldn't be very appropriate.
Yeah, sure. But I mean, well, a lesser game would have had her be 18 and would have like had numerous ass shots at her in the promo. I'm saying this was like a mainstream game back in 2013 when we didn't have a lot of games where a character like Ellie, who you didn't need to apologize basically for any aspect of it. And I also think that it was a mainstream game which wasn't it was better. It's much better written than the average mainstream game of the era.
It is.
But it's
Yes.
also, it appeals to women, and it appeals to non-gamers in a way that the general AAA at the time didn't. And I feel like a lot of the critical hype around it was people who weren't very deep into video games coming into it and saying, "Oh, video games don't just have to be I'm a muscular army man and I'm gonna, shoot some terrorists or whatever."
Yeah, and it's not just like Uncharted where it's just big, dumb, goofy fun.
Yeah.
Quick, witty dialogue, banter, whatever. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but like
It's different.
it was the Last of Us showed like, hey, yeah, games can have heart.
Yeah, it showed it to the mainstream that didn't know it.
And I think having a gameplay that is substantially more gamey and more fun to play than like an Uncharted. It also appealed to the hashtag gamers as well. That like, hey, there's actually meat to the gameplay. I actually said this on Twitter, but like one of the things I really appreciated about The Last of Us was that they actually validated the work of the environmental artists by giving you a tangible in-game reason to want to explore. You're finding upgrades, you're finding ammo,
you're finding handwritten notes with hints to saves and stuff.
Yeah, and you're also getting environmental storytelling. You're also finding the notes that reveal stuff about the environments that you've been exploring, and it gives you an idea of even though some of it was kind of dumb, that like, why is someone writing a note about this? But whatever. Getting past that, you could still appreciate like there is an attempt at like to make sure that these areas had like the substance behind them.
Yeah.
They felt lived in, and that like these aren't just polygons and textures. These were locations these used to be people's homes, and that I think that attention to detail gave these locations a sense of character.
Yeah.
So, yeah, good game.
Oh,
very good game. I
just realized, Bogan, you said Arkham City earlier for combat. Could you imagine if Uncharted was like, you just have to platform and you have to position yourself? Like combat was super mixed in with the platforming?
Sure.
I think that could have been super interesting.
You mean like Mirror's Edge?
I haven't played Mirror's Edge.
Yeah.
I mean more in just... anyway, we have to... we're on 100 minutes in already.
Yeah, so we're going to take a quick break.
That would also have allowed Drake not to be such a big killer. I like those scenes in Uncharted where he's like in caravans, slowly, gradually making his way to the front of it, punching cars and stuff.
Anyways, we're going to take a quick break, and we will reconvene with our essay topic of Maligned Sequels.
Yes.
See you in a bit. Hello, everyone, and welcome back.
Yeah. Let's talk about Maligned Sequels.
Yeah, okay, whatever. We're talking about... This was your topic, so why don't you lead off?
Well, we gotta be quick because Bogan is getting hungry, and we don't want him hungry on the podcast.
Whatever will we do?
So my thinking is, we have a lot of maligned sequels in video games. Your Bioshock 2s, your Arkham Origins. Did you guys play Arkham Origins?
Yes.
Nope.
It's totally fine. It's not Arkham's Asylum, it's not Arkham City, but it's totally fine. It's a good game by all accounts. But
I didn't like City that much.
Yeah. See, this is what I'm talking about. You guys don't know what you're talking about. Anyways.
It was...
I thought City was too bloated.
No.
What are you talking about?
Arkham City is great.
No. I thought Arkham City was way too long.
It's
I like
not. It's like 8
Asylum
hours
a lot
long
better.
or something.
I just felt like Asylum was way better paced. I liked the level design a lot better. I just wasn't a fan of City. I just thought it went on for too long, and the combat isn't good enough to sustain the length.
Well, this is immediately, Bogan. I'm sorry, you're not going to be eating tonight. No, but
hold
anyways,
on. Do we want to get into the topic itself? Because I also have a lot to say about Arkham City.
yeah, I want to get into the topic. So basically, first I want to introduce it. My thinking is there are games like the Arkham Origins, there are games like the Bioshock 2s, which I like. I don't think you can say they're bad. I think those are good games, but they are, whether they're overshadowed by a good predecessor, whether they are members of a really bloated and tired franchise. I'm looking at you, Assassin's Creed. I'm looking at you, Battlefield. You guys know who you are. It seems like the standard for evaluating games changes drastically based on legacy. And that's basically, that was the nugget of a topic idea I had. Let's see what we can do with it.
See,
Okay.
I feel that I'm usually, well, that sounds like hyperbole, but I'm usually very harsh about that kind of stuff because I often don't like sequels. I don't like remake culture. I don't like, when people say, oh, I wish they would bring this back. Oh, I hope they make another one of this. And I'm like, no, how about you make something new instead? So I don't like the ideas of a lot of sequels anyway. And I feel like there are a lot of sequels that I just find kind of dull and boring because they're just repeating what has already been done. That a lot of people eat up, where they're not harsh at all. They're like, oh, it's more of that thing I love. Great. Give me that. So
These are your Assassin's Creed, these are your Marvel movies.
Sure. My favorite example is actually Mario Galaxy 2, which is, by all accounts, that is a good game, but it's just Mario Galaxy again. And in parts, it's like a direct rip-off, where Mario Galaxy was so good. For example, with Mario Galaxy in itself is a really innovative game, and it's really well executed on the first try. And then it has, some of that music, for example, that Dusty Garden theme. That is catchy, that is iconic, that is a really great song. And then I play Mario Galaxy 2, and it has a Dusty Garden equivalent planet with a Dusty Garden equivalent song in it. And I was just rolling my eyes. 720. It felt so cynical. And a lot of people think Mario Galaxy 2 is the better fucking game. Whenever I see people talk about these games, like, oh, Mario Galaxy 2 made Mario Galaxy even better. And I'm like, no, Mario Galaxy 2 does not get the same leeway because it's just doing what the first game has already established again. You need to aim higher. And that is the stuff that annoys me.
But here's the thing. What if you had played Mario Galaxy 2
well, I don't
first?
fucking care. That has nothing to do with legacy.
Who cares about legacy?
We do,
No,
because we're
well,
talking about it.
No, but that's the point, Daniel. Almost everybody does. Like that's the reason Bioshock 2 isn't as remembered as Bioshock 1. It's the reason your Arkham Origins are sort of forgotten. Clearly, people care about legacy. Consciously
obviously,
or not.
I didn't mean it literally.
Yeah, okay.
Obviously, people do care.
And for Arkham Origins in particular, I think that game does just not have as good of villain roster.
No,
it's
I think
the third game.
But the point that I was trying to make though is that it's all about your perception. Because you went into Mario Galaxy 1 first, Mario Galaxy 2 doesn't look as impressive by comparison. But if you would have played Mario Galaxy 2 first, which, I've never played either game, so whatever. but like based on what you're saying, Mario Galaxy 2 is the technically better game.
Barely.
Therefore, by that logic, when you look back on Mario Galaxy 1, less fondly, because then you'd be like, oh, well, I played Mario Galaxy 2 first, and that was a better game. 1 just feels like a,
No,
lesser
because
game.
Mario Galaxy 2 does not do enough to really distance itself from the first game. It's not like you're playing 2 and it's like, oh, that makes 1 not worth playing anymore. It's just like, oh, here's more of that shit, and maybe there's 2 new powers, and there's also this dumbass motion-controlled bird that plays like absolute garbage because it's the Wii.
Yeah. But then, I mean, like I said, I like Arkham Origins. It is absolutely more of that thing I like, except now you have an electric punch, and the story isn't as good. But I do like it. It is more of what I like.
I think, Boken, you have a big problem, I've noticed, with sequels that just iterate. You want more than just iteration. You want something to like elevate.
Yeah.
You would have preferred it if Arkham Origins had maybe gone the other direction, where it's maybe it's still open world or whatever, but let's strip Batman off his gadget. Let's take it more to nuts and bolts, early days Batman, where it's even less fluent.
I don't know. That Arkham Origins really doesn't do anything special. When I play a series of games, I want them to keep experimenting, and I want them to keep, improving is actually second, because that's just quality of life improvements. But I want them to come up with new ideas or develop something in the larger idea,
like the Jack series.
I don't know.
So
hold on. The thing is, Arkham Knight did improve. Like Arkham Knight did bring in the car, the Batmobile, and it was garbage. Like that did not play well at all. That's where I should.
It was fun,
okay,
but it was completely. It was completely ill-placed in that game.
Yeah, it doesn't fit with that style of game, or with the style of level design they have in Arkham City.
Yeah, or just like tonally, that Batman is the stealth assassin, but he's also this crazy driving people over guy.
And you're fighting tanks on the street.
But drone tanks. No people are harmed.
It's just, they tried there, but it just didn't work, and it was not a good game.
Yeah. But you'll give credit to at least they tried.
Sure.
But Boken, you strike me as a kind of person that would prefer like a fantastic failure as opposed to like like something that's like perfect yet does nothing original.
You like The Last Jedi more than The Force Awakens, I remember.
Of course.
Yeah. See, I generally agree there, but I'm not as harsh on more of what I like as you are.
Yeah. I definitely respect that. I respect wanting to see like something new and creative and fresh and different more than seeing the same shit, just done a little better. But I don't have a problem with seeing the same shit done a little better, as long as it's done well.
I also care about franchises when I can see how they keep changing. Like I enjoy the act of going through a franchise and just dissecting what has been changed and what hasn't been changed. So that's not necessarily the issue, but for example, that's why I like going through all the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, because while those are structurally somewhat samey, I like the different ideas and the different myths they are implementing, even though the movies aren't, like, some of them are really bad. But at least I still am interested in where they will go next.
But then I would feel that's kind of like the Marvel movies. They kept building up like, oh, now we're going to do space. Now we're gonna do these alien gods. Now we're gonna like they kept going in a different direction, and we shit on those movies all the time.
Yeah, because the basic characters all feel very samey to me. Those movies until well, there are some of the bigger movies. I mean, there are like Endgame, obviously, and what was the one before that?
Infinity War.
Infinity War.
Infinity War.
And then maybe Winter Soldier. Those were the movies that took risks. The rest was just introducing more characters that are, these quippy white bread heroes. Where
How did you feel about Civil War?
Civil War was fine. I liked the ending. I liked when there was just 3 people fighting and not the world exploding.
Did you like it when Captain America beat up Iron Man?
Sure.
I was so happy watching that in the cinema. Like, yeah, take that, Robert Downey Jr.
Everybody
Everybody loves you. I think you're just pretty good.
But I still think the best Marvel movies, or the ones I probably care the most about, are like with Spider-Man Homecoming, because that is super scaled back, and that is very contained and very small and personal. And then probably Black Panther.
How about Iron Man 1?
Yeah, sure, that too. But that has been the introducing movie, where you get that structure that they kept repeating a lot was, establish your character, have him go through an origin story where he learns to deal with his power, and then there's some kind of conflict where he has to find some kind of villain at the end.
Yeah, but it was like game changing when Iron Man 1 came out. I remember people's reactions. But then franchises just have an issue in that the more established you are, the not only do the forces that be make it harder for you to experiment, fan expectations drives a lot of design and stuff like that, but also I feel like inertia, there's just a natural inertia when you have an established world, you have these characters, you can't keep reiterating forever. So I feel like whenever you have franchises, they're going to be overrepresented by works that are safer. Is there... Well, then again, I just said it earlier. The Jack series kept doing crazy new things. To mixed effect, but they kept doing it.
Wasn't the 4th Jack game like...
That was a terrible racing
pretty
game.
garbage? No, that's Jack X. I'm talking about like the Lost Precursor, whatever the fuck it was called.
Oh yeah, that's a Vita game. That's just the Lost Frontier. Yeah,
Yeah, I heard that one was like super forgettable and
there
whatever.
was nothing to that game. But again, totally reiterated on the franchise. Like that is as stylistically different from the rest of the Jack games as they are from each other. Quality, ignoring the quality of the game, it is a massive jump. It's a big swing in that sense. But
so I mean I think ideally for a good sequel to work, it would need to introduce enough new ideas while also improving upon the foundations from its predecessor.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when we get something like a BioShock 2, I mean I haven't personally played BioShock 2, but when you get
I'm vouching for
games
it.
like that, what?
I'm vouching for it.
Like when we get games like that don't necessarily like shake the formula too much, but are still, good games on their own, I don't think it's totally fair to just say like, oh fuck this, get that shit out of my face, because there could still be some good stuff there, even if it's not like even if it's not as fresh or as unique or as interesting as its predecessor. I don't think that's the end all be all.
No.
It's important, but there are other things that go into making a good game, I would say.
Do you have
we were just talking about The Last of Us. I don't think The Last of Us really does much that's super original. Now, granted, that's not a sequel, but it's still in line with this idea of like something having to be unique and bringing in new ideas and blah blah blah. I feel like everything that I've seen in The Last of Us is something that I've seen in a bunch of other games.
Yes, and more importantly, you would have seen it before The Last of Us. Like, Last of Us did not usher in the zombie landscape by any stretch. It was just, it took all of these disparate design approaches. It's like, oh, environmental storytelling, let's take that. Let's take Uncharted sort of movement / combat. Let's improve it, though.
Yes.
Let's take zombies, and let's just distill it into this incredibly focused product.
Right. The point I was trying to make is, even though The Last of Us doesn't really have much about it that's particularly original, what makes it work and what makes it a successful product is that it's able to coalesce all of these different elements in a way that is that makes for a very streamlined, very enjoyable experience. So, and I think there's merit to that.
Yeah.
And in a large sense, The Last of Us is iteration. It is purely iteration, but it is still a very good experience in doing that. So I think in that, I think we need to place more value on the idea of execution rather than just simply bringing something new to the table. You can bring something new to the table, and that's great, but if you can't execute it well, then it will be looked back upon as like, oh, that was a cool experiment, but, you know, whatever, it still sucked. Like The Witcher 2, I recently saw Joseph Anderson's video on it, and
tread lightly.
That game is like that whole game is like a bundle of experiments, like just tons of ideas being thrown at the game to see what works, and it ends up being like a huge clusterfuck as a result. And because of that, while The Witcher 2 is arguably chock full more of like ideas and concepts that are wholly new and, you know, compared to The Last of Us, I'd much rather play The Last of Us, because even though The Last of Us is much more derivative by comparison, it's also the much more streamlined and more straightforward experience. And much more straightforwardly fun to play.
Guess which of these two games I don't care for, and which of these two games is in like my, I don't know, top 15 games of all time.
You've talked about your love of The Witcher 2 before.
Yeah. And also I think The Witcher 3 was in itself a milestone game, because it does not play like the other Witcher games, but I still think Witcher 2 is so much better.
Interesting.
Even though it's really hard to compare them, and that is Witcher, that is the thing where you can tell me all the flaws that Breath of the Wild has, all the flaws that The Witcher 2 has, all the flaws that Transistor has. Those games, throughout all these flaws, I think those games do something really, really well. And I would much rather play and experience that than some iteration of a competent but ultimately kind of pointless game.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say The Last of Us is pointless.
Not necessarily The Last of Us. What I wanted to get at, really, and this is where we can go back to Arkham City, is this current trend that is still ongoing of these endless open world games with stealth and crafting and blah and blue. There we don't even have to talk about sequels. We can just talk about game trends. And yeah, Ghost of Tsushima came out. That game does not seem, from all accounts, seem to do a lot of stuff that is new. And so it's going to be treated differently than The Witcher 3, which did the same, but years earlier, you know? And it's like, I had my fill with these open world games when I played Arkham City. And I really always ask myself, like,
that far back?
Yeah, but that
was the same year as Skyrim. We were still in like,
that was 2010, and that
was 2011. Arkham City,
or 11, whatever. But that game was the first one where I was like, wow, this open world is crazy, like just running around and grappling around and even playing Catwoman in that. I enjoyed a lot. I just enjoyed the openness and all these side stories and the mobility of your character.
I think City didn't land for me because I didn't play it when it came out. I had played it a good number of years afterwards, and I had already played other open world games. So for me, like Arkham City, I guess it didn't hit me in quite the same way because I was just like, oh, this is just a sloppier version of Asylum.
I remember a lot of the almost all of the advertisement for the Arkham City was, it's like Arkham Asylum, but you're in Gotham now.
Yeah, but that's where I would say I think City to Asylum. I understand why people like Asylum more. I think City does enough for a sequel to be actually its own thing. They did really open up the world. I think they also massively improved the boss fights.
Oh yes,
sure.
And the story.
I'm not sure. I'll agree that there are some elements that City does better than Asylum, but it overall, like I feel like City is exactly. I feel like you in this instance, where like for me, City didn't do enough new and original for me to really get into it. Like it just felt like I was playing more Asylum, and I felt like Asylum was like the perfect length. It's when the game was starting to end, I felt like I was starting to feel fatigued, and then the game ended, and I was like, oh, perfect. So like with City, by comparison, like there wasn't much that they added that was new. So like it just felt like it just went on and on and on, and then I was just like, oh my god, just have fucking end this shit.
I don't know. I think back then I found that structure to be novel enough, and that's where the perspective problem really comes in. Because for me, the open world games that I cared about were like Assassin's Creed 1 and Arkham City, and I feel like aside from a couple other games, maybe.
I feel like if you went back to Assassin's Creed 1,
oh no, that game
you would not feel.
But it was novel at the time. And
yes, I can agree.
With those games, like those games came out in 2009 and 2011. And we are still producing these games. How the fuck am I supposed to judge a Ghost of Tsushima? I don't even want to play it because I feel like the genre has not, as the whole trend in itself has not advanced enough for me to even give a shit. And that's why I cared about Breath of the Wild so much more than any other open world game I've played.
Sure, because Breath of the Wild does a lot of new stuff.
But then I remember distinctly us at launch, we had pretty, not negative, but we were not the biggest fans of Sekiro. And that's a wholly unique game, which does absolutely iterate on on its, not predecessors genre, franchise-wise, but it definitely iterates on in the other FromSoft games.
Yeah, I didn't like the combat. I mean,
I couldn't get into Sekiro because I fucking suck at parrying. I fucking suck at it, and when I tried playing it, I was just terrible at it. I was so disappointed, not in the game, but just in myself. I'm like, why are you so shitty at this?
But I remember when we had the Game of the Year talks, I felt myself, because that game came out earlier in the year, and even though I hated Sekiro when I played it, I was back at the end of the year. I felt very mellow towards it. I felt because the frustration was kind of behind me, and I realized that there has been a lot of cool art direction about it. It did try stuff. I didn't care for what it tried to do, but it did try.
You didn't personally care for it, but you learned to respect it.
And we also had then, sorry to cut you off, we had Resident Evil 2 in the same year, didn't we? And that's like, it's not ostensibly trying a lot of new stuff. It's trying some old stuff in a new way.
I think that's novel in its own way.
But you guys gave the Game of the Year award to Devil May Cry 5, which which
You
I
gave
maintain.
You did too. The fuck are you talking about?
No, I gave it to Resident Evil 2, but I was outvoted by you two.
As it should be.
But then, see, here's the thing though. Devil May Cry 5, good game. Did it do anything new? Isn't it just multiple protagonists actually?
Yeah.
Well, 4 had multiple protagonists as well.
But isn't Nero, not Nero, V, isn't he, isn't his inclusion enough to distinguish it?
It was for me.
Yes.
And the grapple arm?
I would say so.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
Well,
I was going to try to overwrite the Game of the Year awards we did.
Also, we didn't vote.
Well,
we decided we would determine a game together. That's why we landed on Devil May Cry 5, because we all liked it. My game of the year last year was Baba's You. But I know that you guys didn't play that, so I didn't, that wasn't in the running.
No, I played it. I played it.
Yeah, but okay, but that wasn't in the running because we didn't all,
Oh, that is interesting though, because Resident Evil 2 is a franchise going back to form. It's very highly acclaimed. Resident Evil 3 gets sort of shuffled away.
Yeah, that's true. Resident Evil 3 got kind of ignored, which is ironic because that's what happened to the original Resident Evil 3 as well.
But that's also interesting because I don't know if that is... I think that is kind of fairly comparatively maligned. Not that it's bad, but I think Resident Evil 2 is much, much better than Resident Evil 3 Remake.
I mean, I haven't played either. I only played a little bit of 2.
Yeah, I haven't played 3, but I haven't heard great things.
Yeah, but then that is a showcase of, a franchise always can do something new. So maybe it is a much healthier heuristic, critically, collectively for us to apply to expect new things, because Resident Evil 2 Remake can always happen. There's no reason Arkham Origins couldn't have been Resident Evil 2 Remake. There's no reason it theoretically... it is more of what you like, but it could have been so much more.
But what if Resident Evil 2 Remake was a completely new game with a new IP and new characters and none of the Resident Evil back? Well, that's not my fucking issue. I just want to play games.
But then we don't get anything.
Well, then the fucking people need to grow up. Stop only caring for brands.
That's never gonna happen. That's never gonna happen.
I'm not waiting for the next great remake to come out.
That's gonna be the Demon Souls remake, surely.
Oh.
But then, just as an aside, not really on topic, I don't dislike those sorts of just visual remakes if it means people can play them. Like Shadow of the Colossus remake by Bluepoint, even Demon Souls, because I don't have any expectation that the mainstream audience is ever going to go back to the PlayStation 2. I don't think that's going to happen. And if refurbishing the visuals is what it's going to take for them to play Shadow of the Colossus, then refurbish the visuals, because let them play it. Let me play the original. I
mean, personally, I don't give a fuck. Shadow of the Colossus PS4 remake was great and all, and I enjoyed it, but I didn't need to see the graphics improved. They could. All I want is for those games to be more readily available. That's, at the end of the day, that's more so what I take from these re-releases. Is just, we want to keep these games alive because they mean something, and these should be available to people, and sure, why not improve the
Yeah.
graphics? I guess.
I mean, my issue with the Demon Souls remake is not that there's a Demon Souls remake and people get to play it again. My issue is the prominence with which it takes over an announcement of a new console generation.
Yeah, and also that it is a large statement on the unavailability of the original Demon Souls, that it, rather than just like that, we just can't play Demon Souls on the PlayStation 4 alone is ridiculous.
Sure, yeah.
You know what else is interesting? The Last Guardian. I think that's a masterpiece of a game. Nobody talks about it. I think that is just as good as Shadow of the Colossus and Eco. No one talks about it. Why is that?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I haven't played
still
it.
have to play it too.
I think I'll give you this. I think a lot of people were put off by having to babysit Trico.
See, I don't know if I'm going to accept that, because Fumito Ueda games have a mainstream appeal, and the mainstream loves cute pets.
But do the mainstream love taking care of cute pets in games?
Sure. Nintendogs sold millions of copies.
That's not the same, and you know it.
No, but
That's not the same.
you're not really taking care of Trico. You're solving puzzles with him or her.
Yeah, and I think that's very off-putting for a lot of people.
Maybe. I don't know if that's the reason it's been sort of forgotten, though. I feel like, I don't know. I can't explain why that game flew under the radar the way it did, in that it isn't really brought up anymore.
I think it's also the fact that people were waiting for that game for so long, people just forgot about it.
Maybe. That's definitely
And
possible.
by the time it came out, there was little fanfare because like they were like, "Oh, you finally released this, I guess, whatever."
That's entirely possible. Maybe it would have had a bigger splash if it had gotten like The Last of Us 2 sort of marketing. Maybe not that much money, but I definitely don't remember seeing a lot of advertisements for it. I remember it was a game which journalists, critics, and really hardcore gamers were very excited for. A lot of the producers behind it, like a lot of the Sony higher-ups, were very happy that it was happening. But I never saw it get the sort of roaring applause at E3 that Final Fantasy VII Remake got.
Well, I don't think like Fumito Ueda's games, I don't think they have the same effect on people that Final Fantasy VII did.
No, that's true.
And I feel like Fumito Ueda's games appeals more to like weirdos like us, rather than Final Fantasy VII, which when it came out had a lot of mainstream appeal.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
You
Fumito
know,
Ueda's games, they've always been sort of cult hits. And they break even with re-releases and like over time.
They're basically the equivalent to like art house films, you know, being released by like a big company.
Yeah.
You know,
That's true.
like for some reason Sony, you know, gave the go ahead for these art house games.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think we've exhausted this topic. What do you guys think?
Do we have any closing statements?
Well, I feel like
Acer?
I feel like there is a bit more to say on. I think it is kind of tragic how many games. See, here's what I also wanted to say. A lot of games, which are sort of a lot of sequels, which are unfairly maligned because you're bringing the wrong standard into evaluating them. BioShock 2 as a standalone game is really rich. BioShock 2 as a sequel to BioShock 1, I don't know. There's not like a lot. I don't know if there I'm wondering if there should be a different standard for when a sequel is not... It's a sequel, but it is its own thing more than it's a sequel. Does that make sense?
What? Say again? It's a sequel, but...
It's a sequel... It is a sequel in name and setting only. You would never... Skyrim, you probably don't compare that to Morrowind. Like, that is... Skyrim is enough of its own thing in the Elder Scrolls franchise that you don't... Like, you compare them maybe in seeing how they've gotten dumber, but you don't bring Morrowind standards into Skyrim, do you?
But that's exactly how they've gotten dumber.
Yeah, that's true. But I feel like... I feel more... I'm trying to say... See, I had this idea in my head that I wanted to express, and I can't put the words on the page for it, so... I'm just wondering if there are a lot of games which are evaluated as sequels when they really should be evaluated as their own things. When the sequel appraisal drags them down and gives you the wrong idea of them.
I don't know about that. I mean, I can't talk about Bioshock 2 because I haven't played that, but Arkham Origins, even if it is a competent game, I don't think anyone needs to play that. I don't think you get something out of Origins that you don't already get out of City or Asylum.
Well, yeah. I wouldn't make that argument for Arkham Origins. I'd say I would make it for Bioshock 2, but then I suppose we'll have to readdress this topic when the two of you have played it 100 years from now. Unless Daniel has something to say about that.
Nah.
Alright then.
Anyways.
Hey, is Devil May Cry 2 an unfairly maligned sequel?
No. It is quite fairly maligned.
The Devil May Cry reboot, that is unfairly maligned, isn't it?
Somewhat.
So, yeah, I was going to say, in terms of the story, it is fairly maligned.
Yeah.
I also think the gameplay has some issues. I mean...
The gameplay does have issues, but... Well, especially if we're talking about the vanilla version. But the definitive edition actually cleans up a lot of problems and is a fairly decent game.
That would have been remembered sort of fondly if it hadn't had the Devil May Cry name attached, wouldn't it?
Yes. I'm actually writing a video called Learning to Forgive, DMC Devil May Cry.
Jesus Christ.
Where... What?
Don't you have anything better to do?
What the fuck is that supposed to mean? What is this? What's wrong with this video? What's wrong with this video idea? What do you have something to say?
I don't fucking care for that game. I don't want to forgive.
Don't you have anything better to do?
I'm not even that much of a DMC fanboy, but I don't fucking care about that game. That is like a remake being arrogant about being a remake, but also a shittier version of what it's remaking, and it's just like, fuck off. I don't need you in my life. I don't need you anywhere. And even if it is a competent game, that is a game I do not need to play.
Okay. But this is my video.
I know.
Whatever.
That's why I'm asking if you don't have anything better to do, because I know I do.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
Oh, he's giving you permission, Daniel. It's fine now.
Also, what the fuck?
Now I'm glad I have your blessing.
Why the fuck, why are you writing those shitty videos when you could be making part 2 of your Zestria video or whatever? Like, I'm waiting for that shit. Do something
Oh, yeah.
productive.
I already wrote part 2.
Well,
part 2.
Record it, edit it. I don't care.
It's being edited. It should be coming out this
Okay.
month.
There we go.
Jesus. My God, I feel so attacked. I didn't expect so much aggression from Boken over
Daniel,
this.
could
Jesus.
you make a video for me where where you learn to forgive Arkham Origins?
No, because I never played it.
Well, could you play it then? God, and learn to forgive it.
I feel like Origins didn't get that much ire as DMC got.
No,
So-
but it got forgotten. And I think that's a bit unfair because it's a completely competent version of itself.
Yeah, but-
it is.
But that's exactly the point. Do I need to remember competent games when I've already played something similar?
Well, sure.
Well, the point of my learning to forgive the DMC reboot video is more so like it's me trying to tell the narrative of when the game, like the mindset of like my mindset, which can be extrapolated to the mindset of many fans at the time, like how they were feeling when DMC, the trailer initially dropped, and then when the game released, up to Devil May Cry 5 coming out.
Yeah, and you were one of... I knew Daniel back then. He had knew Dante's haircut and all that, and he was telling me about how wonderful it was going to be. He was looking at buying the jacket, and I was like, man, maybe just wait until the game comes out, Daniel, before doing this. And he was like,
Yeah,
no,
I was ravenous.
no, I will not do that. Look at Virgil.
It was a new Devil May Cry game. It had to be good. But no, like...
Obviously, this isn't true.
Right. Well, you'll see whenever I release it. But speaking of releasing videos, you two have released some stuff. So instead of talking about what I have planned, let's talk about what you two already have. So, Boken, you made a video about Kirby. Kirby's Dream Course.
And it's...
I liked it. It was good.
Thanks. I don't have much more to say about it, honestly. It was a short video and it felt like an easy video to make where I didn't need to think about it much. So I'm aiming for more complex videos now.
Okay. Well, I still enjoyed it. I thought it was a nice little video about a nice little game. That's actually a game that I've played before. I played a 2-player with my nephew a few times, and it's good fun. And it was interesting to see your perspective on it and to talk about the physics, especially because I hadn't thought about it, but when you were breaking it down and then going like, I've never seen any other Super Nintendo game like do anything close to this, I was like, that gave me more of an appreciation for it because I didn't think about it from that perspective of like, oh yeah, this probably is like super advanced for a Super Nintendo game. Like I can't think of any other Super Nintendo games that, you know, that did something like this or
I
even
have not
close.
gotten any comments to the contrary. Like there's someone going, no, but actually this did this and that.
Actually, I think you'll find that,
Yeah,
Yes.
that person.
Frog Fractions did it first.
how could you be so stupid? Clearly, you never played this obscure indie game that only released in Japan.
The internet gremlins.
Yeah, haven't you ever played Umihara Kitase? Come
Wow,
on.
Daniel with the weeb knowledge.
That was a deep cut right there.
But yeah,
Was that a real thing?
Yes.
oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
I thought you made that name up.
I did not. I think you could get that on Steam, actually.
I just won't.
But yes, I did release that. I still have my script about sharp objects that I could have started recording the audio 2 months ago, and I still haven't because I hate recording audio. but I will.
That you have that wonderful studio.
Yes, that I need to set up every fucking time, and it's really annoying. I am actually surprised
I was
how
right.
good my audio is in the new video, though.
Oh.
And I was shocked how bad my audio was in the old videos when I thought I had decent audio, but holy fuck no. But yeah, I'm going to get to that, and then I'm also writing my Bojack video right now, where I want to look at individual episodes that do really crazy shit. For example, the eulogy video, the episodes. The eulogy episode is something I've never seen in another show. I'm going to dissect that. I'm going to dissect that one Bojack episode where they go to to a Halloween party, and it's just the same Halloween party happening in 4 different years, and we fought like.
Oh
we
yeah, I
follow
remember
the
that
same
one.
characters at the same party during different times of their lives, and it's wild. That shit is. And Bojack keeps doing these crazy narrative devices that I just want to look at them and really dissect why they are using that and what it adds to these episodes.
How long is that script at this point?
I'm still writing for the first episode, which is that underwater thing, and it's already like probably 7 to 8 minutes, so that's going to be a long video.
All right then.
Cool. Looking forward to it. So Acer, you've released a bunch of shit, actually, I think, since we last recorded. You've released your Kingsfield videos and your Deus Ex video.
Yes.
You've been really fucking busy.
I have. I have no friends, so I make videos.
See, I don't either, but I have Valorant, and yeah.
Valorant is my friend.
Well, regardless, your work ethic is quite admirable.
Well, thank you.
You've all of these videos are like at least like an hour long.
No,
if not a little more.
No, only the Deus Ex videos.
Yeah, almost.
The Kingsfield videos are like 30 minutes each.
Still, that's a lot of content.
Daniel watched them at half speed. He wanted to make me sound drunk.
I did not.
Do you ever get those comments where it's like, hey, if you listen to this at half speed, he sounds drunk? You sound drunk. I don't sound drunk. You sound drunk. Who watches videos at half speed?
I don't know. That is weird. But so I've actually played Kingsfield 3. So that was the one I was looking forward to the most because I've played a good chunk of it, but I think because I was young at the time, I didn't know what I was doing. So like that game actually freaked me out a lot as a kid.
Didn't you tell me you sold one of the quest important items?
Yeah, I did.
17,000
because I didn't know any better. It was like, oh man, I have all this gold now. I could get all these cool weapons now. And then I was wondering, why can't I progress? I'm just going back and forth between the same areas. I can't move forward.
That's pretty funny.
But it was very interesting to see your video on 3 as well as 2, and to see kind of like the progression of the games, and as well as watching some of the footage of 3 and remembering like, oh yeah, the characters looked really weird, and so I remember those monsters, and this game actually has a field.
Yeah.
Unlike the first 2 apparently, which are lacking in fields.
Yes. Also, Kingsfield 3 does one of my favorite video game things. It does that when you go back to a level from an earlier game, it just sends you back to the catacombs from the first game. That's and it's optional. Okay. It's like an optional nostalgia trip. I really liked it.
That's nice.
So it's just like one area from the original game?
It's one entire level. like one of the 5 levels is reused. It's altered a little bit, like certain pathways are blocked off, and then you can warp from the end of that area after defeating the boss there to the bottom of the boss area of the first game.
So, like, are you able to? Because, like, I know in Kingsfield 1, it mostly takes place in that one building, right?
It completely takes place in the Royal Cemetery.
Right. So, does that mean you get to see what it looks like from the outside and you get to enter it? Okay, that's pretty interesting.
It's not as it is interesting in retrospect, but when I walked in there, I was like, "Oh, what's this?" And I was like, "Oh, no way!" But it doesn't visually look anything like it did in the cutscene from the first game from memory. At least I didn't pick up on it at the time. But yeah, I like the Kingsfields. I think the 3rd is the best. The 4th is the best made. So Kingsfield 3, that's like the Aesir game. Kingsfield 4, that's like the normie game. You want good level design? That's not Kingsfield 3 doesn't have that. Get out of here. Oh, you want things to look beautiful? Nah. Go play Kingsfield 4.
So what you're saying is Kingsfield 4 is normatively you would consider the best, but 3 is your favorite.
Yeah, I would also say, not just normatively, I would also say that it definitively is the best made. And if you're like an aspiring game designer and you want to find an interesting game, don't play Kingsfield 3. Play Kingsfield 4. That game has a treasure trove of interesting ideas to explore. But Kingsfield 3, it like checks all of my boxes. It looks weird. It plays really clunky, but it sort of works. So I really like that. And it's Deus Ex. Everybody knows Deus Ex. But people...
Yes. So, I've played the first Deus Ex, but like I haven't beaten it. That's my bad.
Yeah, I was gonna originally do a video. I wasn't originally gonna do Kingsfield 3. I was gonna do 2 Deus Ex videos. I don't know if I talked about this on the podcast. I've talked about this with you guys.
What, you're gonna do Invisible War?
No, I was gonna do Deus Ex, and then I was going to do an exploration of the conspiracies in Deus Ex, where I would just sort of list them, like go over them. Here's this conspiracy, here's this one, here's this one. And I did some research for it, and maybe we want to cut this from the podcast. At the moment I saw Jeffrey Epstein's name on the Trilateral Commission, I was like, you know what? I just don't need to know about this stuff. I don't need to, because this is going to be a rabbit hole. I don't need to engage with this any further.
I think that's a fair reaction. Yeah. But regardless of me not finishing Deus Ex, I should definitely go back to it. But I still watched your video and enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Yes. I think I would have enjoyed it more had I finished the game, but I still played like a good chunk of it. I can't remember the last thing I did because it was like 7 years ago since I played it.
How old are you? Whoa.
I'm going to be 31 at the end of the month.
Do you think you said 7 because I primed you so often earlier by saying I played Last of Us 7 years ago? Do you think your brain just grabbed the number 7 and...
I don't know.
And
but anyways, it definitely made me want to go back and play the game. And I was also thinking of going back and playing System Shock as well.
Oh, the original.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. But, there's so many games to play.
I think there are 4, actually. I checked.
Only 4 video games ever
No,
made.
only 4 to play. I feel like you've played a lot of other games. You can get it. What have you...
Which are these 4 games? Which are these 4 games?
God. Arkham Origins.
One of them is Deus Ex.
Arkham Origins.
Conversions. Okay.
Bioshock 2, Devil May Cry reboot,
Bioshock 2.
and Deus
I
Ex.
already beaten the reboot.
Well, then,
What do you mean?
there's,
I already beat the reboot. What are you talking about?
then there were 3. Stop stretching this episode, Daniel. We've gone for almost 3 hours. Just end it, please. This banter is not good enough.
All right. Okay. Well, I also released my video on the beginner's guide. And, yeah, did you guys watch it?
Oh, I did not. I think I clicked on it and it was 40 minutes and I was like, God damn it, Daniel.
Ah, damn it, Daniel.
It's
Back at
40
it
minutes,
again.
right? I didn't imagine that.
Almost. I think it's like
37?
30.
You guys need to stop. Everyone needs to stop.
No.
Stop.
What?
Stop.
38 minutes. Yeah.
See, I never watch a video on this type that's shorter than like 20 minutes.
Why?
What do you mean?
I just don't.
That
I like
makes
I
no
like
sense,
the long
but okay.
form.
It's fine.
It makes just as much sense as your statement.
Not at all, because I don't actually have the time to sit down for 40 minutes and do this. If you have the time to sit down
whatever.
for 40 minutes, you have the time to sit down for 10.
But see, that's the fallacy, Bokin. I'll sit down for 10, but then I'll have an extra 30 minutes where I'm doing nothing. No, that's true. I suppose I just have more free time than you do, and also more of a mastery of playing videos at twice the speed than you do. Although I don't think I did that for your video, Daniel. I think if you watch, you can probably check the analytics of how long, how many minutes you got from me. One view from my
What? I mean, you did see it all the way through, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, what do you think
I
of
liked
it?
it.
I appreciate that. I feel like with that video was one of those videos where, like, a lot of my peers came out of the woodwork to tell me, "Oh man, you did a great job with that one,"
Yeah.
which I appreciated. But like views wise, hasn't even cracked 1,000. So I kind of, it kind of makes me feel like, so this is what it's like to release like a critically acclaimed work that was like a box office failure. Like,
You are Fumito Ueda releasing Eco. But then, 6 years from now, when we re-release your video... No. Speaking of, like, we can talk about that after the podcast. Because it's been almost 3 hours.
Yeah, it's been a while. So let's wrap this up. That's it, everyone. It's been another episode of the Essays and Espresso podcast. I hope you enjoyed. This has been your host, Daniel, with Acer and Boken. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.